It's San Antonio at Arlington. Brahmas favored by 2.5. Total sitting at 42.5. Forecast looking like high 70s. Some strong winds with a pretty good chance of thunderstorms. So I believe this is the first night game in Renegades history. Should look really cool to get Choctaw Stadium under the lights. And I hope the rain holds off for the fans, or we might have to squeeze in an under bet before kick. Start with the San Antonio offense. What did we think of Quinton Dormady last week? Well, one thing comes to mind when I watch Dormady, and that's chicks dig the deep ball. You see him slinging it here. I mean, if A.J. Smith was maybe a little pissed off that the Brahmas offense didn't hit a single pass play over 15 yards in their loss to the Battlehawks, they cleaned that right up in week 4. They had 5 pass plays of more than 15 yards in the first half against the Michigan Panthers. And shockingly, none of them went to Cody Latimer, who I came in thinking might be Dormady's best target. But Jontre Kirkland and Justin Smith got all the love. They're the first UFL receiving duo to both go over 100 yards in the same game. So we know the Brahmas are going to throw the ball. It's the run game that has been lacking for A.J. Smith's offense. And that's not a knock on John Lovett. I think he's played really well, showed his versatility. He had a few highlight runs, especially on the last drive where he made about 8 guys miss. He looked like he can shoulder the load with Anthony McFarland being out, and he's probably going to have to do that again. McFarland still not practicing with that shoulder injury. So to me, it's kind of been the underuse of the run game, and we saw this a little bit in Houston last year where I thought they could have fed Max Borgi a little more, but they haven't been efficient enough on third down. Brahmas just 37% on the year in that category. So they've really got to start running the ball effectively on first and second down. That's going to set up those third and shorts. And if you know A.J. Smith, he's a big 4-down territory guy. I mean, Brahmas are 7 for 10 on fourth down conversions. That's highest in the league by far. So when you touch on the matchup against the Arlington defense and how the Brahmas can score, what this matchup is going to look like, well, I think San Antonio can score 25 here in good weather conditions. It's the bad weather that might handcuff that pass game a little bit. You might want to tilt that edge to the Arlington defense, but it's looking like it's going to be severe thunderstorms or no rain at all, and there's really going to be no in between. So don't be surprised if we get another delay on Saturday night. We know Arlington's defense, for the most part, has been atrocious, and they are a little better against the pass than the run, so maybe that helps them a little bit against this air raid. I think it's interesting. Ajene Harris, the starting corner for the Renegades, going up against his old squad, so maybe some bad blood there for a guy who got passed up by the Brahmas in the draft. And I think San Antonio, there's just too many guys to try to tackle in open space. John Lovett, like I said, very good tailback. He can do it on third down. He's going to get the carries inside the goal line. And with Speedy Stevenson, they basically have a second running threat that they can honestly use as a second back. So Arlington, not a good sign, giving up 110 yards a game on the ground. The Brahmas could definitely take advantage of that. The San Antonio offense only had 40 rushing yards, so that has to improve from last week. But I think this actually might be the best chance for the Arlington defense to finally step up in a ball game. They know this scheme, right? They faced it, 3 times last season, twice in the regular season, and then once in the XFL South Championship game. So it's no secret what A.J. Smith is going to try to do here. I still would give the edge to Quinton Dormady and the San Antonio offense, though maybe not as much as the experts are. I noticed this line actually opened up at 1.5 for the Brahmas, and a lot of people are just looking at records thinking Arlington 0-4, and listen, I would never bet on Arlington again. Like, to me, they're the Renegades. I don't have to say that again. But 1.5 to 2.5 signifies a movement that money's coming in on the Brahmas, and you're looking at this offense. Well, check the weather, and also know that Arlington's defense still has some dogs on it, potentially missing a few interior defensive linemen, though. I still give the edge to San Antonio's offense. Flipping sides of the ball and looking at the Renegade offense now, man, I don't know. Where do you start with this group? I think it starts up front. They don't have a good offensive line. And they lost Garrett McGinn for the year. That was I think, first practice of training camp. That was a dagger. They only have one offensive lineman back from that entire XFL title run last year. I think Cameron Hunt was the only one left. So these guys they brought in, they just aren't getting it done. It hasn't been good. They can't run the ball. If they go over 100 yards, it seems to be a miracle. They haven't had a single explosive run of more than 20-plus yards this season. That's nobody else in the UFL is having that problem. Only Arlington. And as statistically good as Luis Perez has been, it's not translating in the win column. He's not on the same page as Chuck Long. They're rushing out of the huddle to get to the line of scrimmage, and they're scrambling to get snaps off. They're not subbing in Lindsey Scott enough, and when they are, they're only giving him a play or two, so not giving him a chance to get in rhythm. He needs to have drives and maybe even full quarters to himself. I don't know why they're not doing that. I mean, last week was rock bottom for this Arlington offense. The drops, the slips, they had several miscommunications. I mean, the ineptitude on third down. I think you can only improve on that kind of stuff from last week, and this is a really good receiving core. Deontay Burnett is going to have some folks to prove wrong on that other sideline. You remember, he was Houston's number one receiver for A.J. Smith's offense, and they passed on him in the draft. I was surprised when I saw San Antonio opt for a guy like John Trey Kirkland over Deontay Burnett. And people will say, what are you talking about? Kirkland's better. Of course he is. But Deontay Burnett is very solid, and you saw that last week against Houston. San Antonio's in trouble on the defensive side of the ball this week. Everybody's hurt. They are going to be missing half their defensive line and edge rusher group, and they just cut a corner in Teez Tabor, who was a former NFL draft pick. I guess this is a pretty good pass defense, but they weren't liking what Teez was showing out there. That might signify Cam Dantzler, who was a new signing in the secondary, to finally make his debut. I guess we'll see, but they do get to the quarterback surprisingly well, even though they've been completely ravaged by injuries. I mean, think about the Brahmas injuries so far. They've lost their starting quarterback, their starting tailback, 3 starting offensive linemen, and now half the defense is going to be out for this week. So I'm giving the Arlington offense an edge here. You can call me crazy. No, I'm not betting on them. Of course, let me say again, I would not bet on this team if I were you, but they are going to be my pick straight up here, Zook. Actually, I need you, Arlington, to get a win. Not for my best bets, but for my DC defenders this week, and DC could really use the help in this case, but that's not why I'm going with them because of the bias there. I said after they lost last week, I still think they can win 4 games. I think this will be the first win in a 3-game win streak. They're going to have Brahmas, Panthers, Showboats, and then back to the Brahmas. I don't think they beat the Brahmas twice. I think they can get one of these, though. I think this will be the one at home, and I think they win 3 straight from here. So I wish they didn't do this stupid thing to me, Zook, where every time I bet on this team, they make a complete fool of me. I feel like I'm safer in my analysis this week because I'm not betting on them, and I'm going to turn out being right because I don't actually have any money. And Luis Perez and Sal Cannella are going to come out looking like Mahomes and Kelsey this weekend.
That's a bold statement.
They do sometimes. They did against DC. They did in the championship game. You just never know with this team.
I get it, but
no action on them. Are you taking the Renegades is the question.
Listen, when you text, no, no, not until they do something.